Yeah, it's the way it is for now, unfortunately. In qualifying, we don't manage to extract more out of the car. I was extremely happy with the lap yesterday. I was very, very happy with the race today. I think we maximized absolutely everything. So I'm very proud of what we've done. Now we just need to improve the car in order to be fighting a bit further.
We heard also the interaction with your engineer, a little bit of tongue-in-cheek conversation as he was encouraging you along.
Yeah, he was very chill. Brian was very relaxed on the pit wall. For me, it was a little bit more intense inside the car, but yeah, I mean, we have a very good relationship, and I think that yeah, we can see it on track now, and it shows results. So I'm really happy about this.
Overall, you feel this was the maximum you could get this weekend?
Yeah, by far. I never expected to finish there. Honestly, I thought that this race was about defending the cars behind, especially Kimi. So it was really good.
So for Ferrari fans around the world, this is a game that a race that never ends. It's about upgrades. What is the next step forward for the team?
Yeah, we need to keep pushing the maximum, and yeah, hopefully upgrades are coming soon in order to improve the car. But thanks for the support.
Okay, congratulations on your podium.
Leclerc breaks the silence after his first podium in 2025. Is Ferrari back, or is it just a mirage? Get ready, because what you're about to hear could change your entire perception of the Italian team. Charles Leclerc has done it. After a forgettable start to the season, filled with frustration and unfulfilled promises, the Monegasque driver managed to climb onto the podium at the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. He finished third, behind Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen, in a race where talent and strategy triumphed over the car's shortcomings. This result, beyond the points it brings, represents something much deeper. It's a kind of respite from the chaos for Ferrari, and for Leclerc, a morale boost after weeks of disappointment. For the first 4 races of the year, Ferrari had been simply irrelevant in the fight for the top spots. The team that finished as runner-up in the Constructors' Championship in 2024 seemed to have completely deflated in this new season. The problems were clear: a lack of pace in qualifying, uneven tire degradation, and a car that didn't quite perform either in slow corners or at high speed. However, in Jeddah, something changed. Leclerc, from the first stint, showed unusual confidence with the SF25. His pace on the medium tires was consistent, without losing contact with the leading group. But what was truly impressive was what came next. His performance on the hard compounds in the second half of the race was decisive. He overtook George Russell on lap 41 and then defended himself like a lion against Lando Norris's attacks, displaying tire management that surprised even his direct rivals. What many don't know is that this defense wasn't just due to the tire, but to Leclerc himself, who understood his car's behavior in critical conditions better than anyone. Instead of wearing down the compound in the early laps, he worked it progressively, waiting for the right moment to attack. That reading of the race was what led him to the podium, on a circuit where overtaking opportunities aren't exactly plentiful. When he crossed the finish line, his radio was a reflection of what he was experiencing internally: relief, pride, but also frustration. He said it without filters. "We didn't have the pace in qualifying, but we were better in the race. We did everything possible. I'm proud, but we need to improve the car." That last sentence is key, because this podium, although celebrated, is also a warning sign. Ferrari has talent, it has drivers, but it urgently needs a car that's up to par. And that's what makes this result so special. It's not a victory, it's not a historic feat, but it is possibly the beginning of a new cycle. A spark that could ignite the reaction the fans are so eagerly awaiting. And if it isn't, it will be remembered as the day Leclerc, once again, pushed Ferrari further than the car deserved. Charles Leclerc finished 4th in qualifying for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. At first glance, it might seem like an acceptable, competitive, even hopeful result. But for Leclerc, it was quite the opposite. When he got out of the car, his face spoke volumes. He was upset, frustrated. And he was quick to say it clearly into the microphones: "I'm not happy, I'm really not happy. I gave everything I had. The car's performance isn't there." These words carry weight. They aren't a simple post-session adrenaline rush. They reflect something deeper. Leclerc felt he had put in one of his best laps of the year, that he had reached the limit, that there was no room for improvement. And yet, it wasn't enough to be in the top 3. He was beaten, among others, by Verstappen, who edged him out by 0.376 seconds. An eternity in Formula One. The big disappointment isn't just the result, it's the expectation. Ferrari had brought improvements to the SF25 for this weekend. A new rear wing, aerodynamic tweaks, a specific setup for the Jeddah track. Everything was designed to reduce the gap to the leaders. But instead of improving, the gap remained practically the same, as if the updates hadn't served any purpose. Leclerc didn't hold anything back. We had some improvements that should have helped, but the gap to the leaders seems to be the same. This sentence alone sums up the pain of an entire team. You invest time, resources, analysis, factory testing, hours in the simulator, and the car still doesn't respond. The most worrying thing is that while Ferrari tries to improve, the rest are doing so too, and perhaps at a faster pace. In qualifying, Ferrari is caught in a paradox. The data confirms it. The SF25 has an extremely narrow operating window. In other words, there's a very limited range in which the car actually works well. Outside that margin, serious problems arise. Oversteer, understeer, lack of stability. It's like trying to dance on a tightrope. Any slightest mistake and you lose half a second. This forces Leclerc to push the car beyond what is reasonable, to push it with an aggressiveness that borders on the dangerous. He himself acknowledged it. On his qualifying lap, he almost ended up hitting the wall a couple of times. But it was the only way to stay competitive. The problem isn't the driver's talent. It's that the car isn't keeping up with him. Leclerc's frustration has technical roots, but also emotional ones. In a team like Ferrari, the pressure is constant. Every qualifying session is a psychological battle. When you know you've given your all and are still far from pole, the helplessness increases. Qualifying in Jeddah wasn't just another session. It was a precise snapshot of the ills Ferrari is suffering in 2025. A team with history, with resources, with capable drivers, but one that can't translate all that potential into pure speed on a single lap. And in modern Formula One, where the difference between glory and mediocrity is measured in thousandths of a second, that's a problem you can't afford to drag on for half a season. The true paradox of Ferrari in 2025 is called the SF25. It's a car that confuses, frustrates, and gives and takes away hope in the same race. It's not slow. It's not unstable in the race. It's not inefficient in terms of management. But in qualifying, it's a real puzzle. The contrast is stark. While it can compete on long runs, on flying laps it looks like a different car. And that's what has Ferrari trapped in a loop from which it still hasn't found a way out. Charles Leclerc has been extremely clear in describing this phenomenon. He said that in qualifying, the car suffers from massive understeer or oversteer, depending on the corner, the timing, the weather, and the slightest variation in setup. But the end result is the same, a lack of grip. That word, grip, is key in Formula One. If you don't have grip, you can't brake late, you can't accelerate early, you can't turn with confidence. You lose tenths in every sector. And those tenths, added together, take you out of the fight for pole. And it's not a setup issue as many thought. Leclerc made it clear. It's not that they're sacrificing qualifying to improve race pace. There's no strategic compromise in the setup. The team is trying to get maximum performance at all times. But simply put, when qualifying comes around and it's time to push the car to its limits, the SF25 doesn't respond. The technical explanation lies in that narrow operating window. What does that mean? That the car only works well within a very narrow range of tire temperature, downforce, and balance. If you exceed or fall short in any of these factors, the car becomes unpredictable. You can't attack it. You can't trust it. And in qualifying, when you're looking for maximum performance over a single lap, that unpredictability is lethal. The most curious thing is that in the race, that problem almost completely disappears. The car is consistent. Tire degradation is controlled. The pace is competitive. Ferrari, in fact, has shown an advantage over some rivals in terms of tire management, especially with hard compounds. This allows them to recover positions on Sundays. But it's already too late. Because if you qualify 4th, 5th, or 6th, you need to take risks, you need to make a comeback, you need to expose the car to fights it shouldn't have. The paradox of the SF25 is that Ferrari can't win where it needs to most, on Saturday. And that condemns them to always going against the grain. To rely on clean races, without strategic errors, without accidents, without unforeseen events. A strategy that in modern Formula One is unsustainable if you're aiming for a championship. Ferrari needs answers. Fast. Because every Grand Prix that passes without addressing this erratic qualifying behavior is one step further away from the title. And every lap in which Leclerc has to risk his life to stay close to the top is a testament to the fact that the talent is still there, but the car isn't quite there yet. Lewis Hamilton's arrival at Ferrari was, without exaggeration, one of the most shocking moves in recent Formula One history. A 7-time world champion, an absolute symbol of Mercedes, and suddenly wearing red. Expectations were immense, not only for what he represents, but for the possibility that, with his experience and technical ability, he could be the catalyst that finally took Ferrari back to the top. But the reality, at least until now, has been very different. At the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, while Charles Leclerc reached the podium, Hamilton crossed the finish line in a distant 7th place. And it was no coincidence. From free practice onwards, the differences between the two were evident. Leclerc seemed to have total control of the car. Hamilton, on the other hand, showed doubts. His softer, more progressive driving style seemed to clash head-on with the character of the SF25, a car that demands aggression, that needs to be pushed to the limit to perform. The telemetry data doesn't lie. In the braking zones, Leclerc is more incisive. He brakes later with more pedal pressure and gets more performance from the front end. Hamilton, on the other hand, is more conservative. Not for lack of ability, but due to an adaptation that is still in progress. 12 years driving a Mercedes leave a deep mark. Completely changing the technical philosophy in such a short time is a monumental challenge. And added to this is an additional complexity. Ferrari decided to introduce new power units for this weekend. Combustion engine, turbocharger, MGUH and MGUK. A complete overhaul that, although planned, changes sensations, power and torque delivery. For Leclerc, all of this is familiar. He has spent years understanding how a Ferrari responds. For Hamilton, each session remains part of a learning curve. He is still getting to know the engine, the car's response, and the team's working dynamics. But there is something more important. Something that isn't visible in the graphics or the data. And that is confidence. Leclerc is comfortable. He knows what the car can and can't do. He's learned to tame it even when the SF25 is unpredictable. Hamilton hasn't reached that point yet. And that, in Formula One, translates into lap time. In millimetric decisions. In tenths of a second lost without the driver even realizing it. This performance gap isn't definitive. It doesn't mean Hamilton can't turn things around. But it does highlight an uncomfortable truth for Ferrari. Today, its strong man is Leclerc. He's the one who's salvaging points, leading the way and holding the Scuderia together while the car isn't keeping up. And that raises inevitable questions. How long does Hamilton need to adapt? Will Ferrari have enough patience? And what impact could this have on the team's internal dynamics if the differences persist? Because one thing is clear, in modern Formula One, tolerance for the process is minimal, and results are the only thing that counts. The podium in Jeddah wasn't a celebration, it was a warning. Charles Leclerc, although satisfied with the result, was quick to send a message that sounded more like a warning than an optimist. We need updates soon to improve the car. That phrase, uttered barely out of the car, is no small matter. It reflects an urgency that Ferrari can no longer ignore. Because what they achieved in Saudi Arabia was more a reflection of Leclerc's individual talent than the real progress of the SF25. And the urgency is not without reason. Oscar Piastri leads the championship comfortably. Red Bull remains a constant threat, although less dominant than in 2023 and 2024. McLaren has made a huge qualitative leap, while Mercedes, with Russell at the helm, is also showing clear signs of competitiveness. In this context, Ferrari cannot afford to remain in a state of transition. Every Grand Prix without significant improvements is a missed opportunity. Leclerc currently sits 5th in the Drivers' Championship, 52 points off the lead. A brutal margin considering only 5 races have passed. Translated into real numbers, that represents 2 complete victories, plus additional points. A difficult gap to close without a radical technical improvement. Ferrari needs more downforce, more balance, and more efficiency in qualifying. And it needs it now. The worrying thing is that, according to Leclerc himself, the latest improvements made to the SF25 haven't made any significant difference. The new rear wing and the Jeddah-specific aerodynamic tweaks failed to close the gap on Red Bull and McLaren. This creates a double problem. Not only are they behind, but their attempts to close the gap aren't working. And in a season where evolution is constant, staying stagnant means going backwards. Leclerc's speech was measured but direct. He didn't speak of frustration but rather of urgency. He didn't attack the team but made it clear that time is running out. Because he knows better than anyone. If Ferrari doesn't respond quickly, its season could fizzle out before the summer break. And that urgency doesn't just affect the championship. It affects morale. It affects external perception. And it also affects internally, in the dynamics between drivers, engineers, and management. A driver like Leclerc, who is squeezing every millimeter out of the car, needs clear signals that his efforts are being supported from Maranello. Ferrari, historically, has been a team that thrives on its moments of momentum. on those bursts of technical brilliance that catapult them from frustration to euphoria. But it's also a team that, when trapped in indecision or delayed development, enters a downward spiral that's difficult to reverse. Leclerc's warning is, in essence, a call to prevent that from happening again.